come and cast your line at me. If not, just keep on diving for some new fish in the sea.
The world's a great big candy store, so let your Tootsie Roll. Come dance on through our swinging door and put some sugar in your bowl. So ladies, Hades is the spot to be where angels sure are not. Some like it hot and hot is what I got for you.
So call me savage, call me wild, but honey, please don't call me mild.
Some like it hot and hot is what I got for you.
Hi everyone, I'm Ruthie Fierberg. I'm an arts journalist and the creator and host of the podcast Why We Theater, and I am so excited to be talking to the costume designer extraordinaire of Some Like It Hot, Greg Barnes. Welcome, Greg.
Welcome back at you.
Oh, well, you know, always happy to be with you. And I have to say, truly, in the presence of costume royalty, I mean, 8-time Tony nominee, 2 wins, and if you needed more evidence of why, I mean, look at the dang painting that I want to hang in my house that you make just as renderings of your ideas.
Well,
they're just stunning.
We do what we can.
Yes, with what we have, which is a lot of talent. So I want to start by asking you, Some Like It Hot, set in the 1930s, where do you begin with your research?
You know, the 1930s is, I think, the most fascinating decade of the 20th century, really because of the social, political, the fashion, the world, the state of the world. And so you have this incredible high-low. You have the Depression. You have these incredible, fantastical films coming out of Hollywood. You have unparalleled wealth. You have desperate poverty.
Right.
So it's a decade where there's so much friction, and at the same time, in the world of fashion, it became the most classic, one could say beautifully proportioned era, and we keep reviving it and ripping it off. You know, when you think about it, the 1970s, sometimes some of the 1990s, and really on the red carpet, a lot of it is very much like a 1930s.
So I always say that I'm a 1970s girl. Don't know if you could tell. But apparently that makes me really a 1930s girl.
Exactly, you're quoting your grandma, or probably your great grandma, and then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's so fascinating. But knowing what you're pulling from in the 1930s, there's still, you know, there are styles that span, like you said, there's glamour, there's poverty, there's, you know, the in-between. How do you know what makes a style a Some Like It Hot style that belongs in the world of the show?
You know, it's interesting when you're in doing that research part of the job, you always try to find imagery that is not the logical imagery that we've all seen 10,000 times. And one of the things that I use as a marker or a meter for inspiration is, I always want the audience to feel like, oh, why don't we still dress like this? As opposed to, weren't they quaint, or didn't they look, you know,
Yes.
that it's aspirational even today, even if it's the poverty moment, in a way, that there's a kind of elegance within how people put stuff together. And it's actually relevant to the opening number of Some Like It Hot, because it's in a speakeasy. The people don't have any money. They're there to, you know, they're having their illegal hooch.
Right.
And they're dancing.
Right.
And listening to jazz. So it's how
The
you...
trifecta of prohibition.
Exactly, all of it. And so it's how they have put these things together. So I call it like, it's the thrift store chic kind of moment. So I looked for things where I could layer stuff but still have it be sexy, feel very open and very, you know, how we wish we dressed.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to just the physical costume, let alone the storytelling. You know, you have silhouettes, you have pieces, obviously, you have texture with your fabrics, and you have color. So what is the Some Like It Hot world? What colors are you pulling? What textures are you pulling?
Well, you know, it's interesting that in the arc of the story, there's many things that happen because we go from the winter in Chicago to the spring in San Diego. So just if you ignore any other aesthetic or artistic decisions, you're going to have a big journey just in that regard. Then within the context of our story, there is a fantastical, almost a vision, like they've been put into this old movie. We get to see people finding themselves, so I get to do a journey with, you know, how they begin the story to where they go to. So I guess some like it hot potpourri that becomes, I hope, unique to just our telling of this Depression tale is taken from all these disparate things, and not just historical photography and fashion, but from architecture and maybe a picture of a cornfield. And I try to take all of these things that are meta and make them be unique too. And out of that becomes a vision.
Right, that the imagery doesn't just come from clothes of the time, it comes from anything of the time.
Exactly. It can be a makeup ad, it could be maybe those amazing photographs that everybody knows of when they're building the Empire State Building. And you see this kind of, you know,
Like the steel worker image that we're used to.
Yeah. So you think of these people as being rooted in a dark, you know, work environment, and yet they're up in the sky as high as you could get, not being in a plane.
Right.
And they are sitting on a beam like they're,
amazing.
You know, at the beach.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that kind of go into finding your voice, and in a weird way, it's very hard to articulate. I always think when I watch a current runway show, and then they interview the designer afterwards, I'm like, don't say anything. Let the work, let the vision, if it doesn't come through, as soon as you put words to it, it loses some of its potency in a way.
Well, we're gonna do a little bit of talking about your vision. I don't want to stain anything, but I do want people to understand, you know, more tangibly what we're talking about. And you brought these gorgeous renderings for us.
Thank you.
So I know that.
Well, you know, one thing that you mentioned a lot of things about how we find the vocabulary, but really in a weird way, if you dial it back to the workshop, there's also the function of the clothes.
Yes.
And so in the opening number, people will see Casey Nicolau, our fearless director and choreographer, has staged a thing that is the kind of thing you feel like, I'm only going to see this. They can't do this 8 times a week. They're just doing this for me tonight because it's so athletic and it's so, you know, sexy and dangerous. So I have to develop a garment that can function.
Yes.
With all
but
that.
like, all of a sudden, you know, the 3/4 length skirt or what have you, if they're kicking, that's not going to work.
Right, exactly.
Right. So here is kind of actually the perfect example of a flexible, right? Like, you couldn't have more leg than that. But this is an ensemble member, which I also love. Ensemble costumes are so important because they're creating the world and that backdrop. So what were you trying to do with this one here?
Yeah, I always start with the ensemble because, you know, unlike a film where the camera tells you, you know, this is sugar and this is the close-up. We don't have that, so we have to help the audience and the lighting designers, of course, the major player here. But we always want to know where the story is being told, and that usually means if I develop the world around, then I know how to place the leading characters. And it's always important to me to have the ensemble not be a cookie cutter, unless that's the piece, unless that's the nature of the piece.
Right, unless they're all flight attendants.
Exactly, exactly. Or a Rockette, or,
Right.
Or it's No Nanette, and they are like, you know, there's the Jordan Allman palette, we call it.
Yes, anybody else out there do No Nanette like I did in high school? Anybody? But seriously,
it's great, right?
That era.
Yeah, exactly. So I tried, and you know, one of the blessings about being blessed to have a career where you've gotten to work with many people and on many shows, is that you start to know the community. So this, for instance, is Jenny Hill. And Jenny Hill was in Something Rotten, she was in Elf, I've seen her in a million things. So I know a little bit about what she just as her physical presence brings to the table.
Right.
So I can kind of, take that her energy and hopefully honor
Yeah.
what she.
But I am seeing like even the echoes of the Art Deco buildings, like in the angles of this pattern.
Yeah.
It's
It's funny. They are dance clothes because the dancing is so athletic. But I tried to not make it look like it's an Alvin Ailey dance piece, even
Right.
though who wouldn't want to watch an Alvin Ailey
truly.
dance piece?
But also, and I will put this down in a moment, but I want to show the contrast of like these are both ensemble members,
Yeah.
right? And you have
Yeah.
such different color palettes, such different, the lines here. Obviously, you have an accessory going on.
Yeah, and it has a different nature. This is kind of when I mentioned your thrift store aesthetic. That this is obviously a dress, but this one here is put together from separate parts.
Right.
And we'll underscore that even more as we get into the build, because this is just the starting gate.
Right.
There's a lot of people that become involved in the journey after we do the bids and we start to pick the cloth and.
So, and is this I would assume, a more Chicago moment?
Yeah,
because we have a hat and kind of those more neutral colors coming through?
This is actually in the same number. So if you could see all 8 of the women, you could see, if I think about it, so he's manipulating me with it's a puzzle of many pieces. But the energy of it should be that they're all individual people that have come to the speakeasy.
Right. As they would in real life.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And speaking of
this is
debonair, speakeasy style. I mean, I know he's not the one that's there, but so this is our character of Osgood.
This is Osgood, who becomes the romantic foil of the character of Jerry Daphne, and so we meet him in San Diego. And it's the spring. It's there at the beach. So it's the same thing. If I had other characters here from the scene, you would see how I've made a close-up of him.
Well, because that white is really going to pop, right?
Exactly, and it's the contrast of the rich blue jacket.
And yet at the same time, like we were talking about the thrift store aesthetic of that ensembleist, here you're getting the hat and the 3-piece vest and the kerchief, and it's even these details I'm seeing in the buttons.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is someone of status.
Here, we're meeting a person who has everything made bespoke. There's nothing, and it turns out in the story that he's a very, very wealthy man, almost like a child in a way, child man. So everything that he
everything
has
done for him
has been made for him. In a way, I even think that maybe his mother has gone with him to his fittings and helped him. I don't know if Kevin would agree with that, but that's what I'm thinking.
Kevin, who plays Osgood. We'll have to check in with him on the backstory.
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm also noticing, and this was present in the other ones too, right? You have hats, you have these gorgeous shoes. How are you collaborating with your milliners and your cobblers to create a full look?
It is crazy. When I did my first Broadway show in 1997, the job was get it from my apartment, go to 890 Broadway, and I'd sit on a couch all day, and the cobbler was down the hall, and the milliner was down the hall, and the dressmaker and the tailor. So you just went to one place. Now, I think we're in 32 shops all over the world. We're having stuff made in Thailand. We're having stuff made in Milwaukee. We're having stuff made in California. We're having a lot of stuff made here.
But are you showing someone kind of this picture or whatever, an individualized picture of shoes and saying, this is what we need? Or is it a back and forth with them as well?
It's a back and forth. For instance, it depends on what the needs of the shoe are. But after I do this elaborate sketch, if the shoes are custom made, I have to redraw all the shoes for the cobbler. And then we go meet with them and we talk about all the leather options and what will hold up, how flexible the sole will be. There's so much that go into it. I did kinky boots.
Yes.
And it was literally, my life was a mirror of the story of kinky boots because I had to figure out how do we make these boots so that they can do a slam split in them 8 times a week.
Right.
And
well, that's the other thing, practicality-wise. It's not just can they kick in this, can they turn in this. It's also will this hold up under 37 washes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we have Osgood, and then we have
This is
Queen Sugar.
Queen Sugar. This is
Just Sugar. But I think she looks like a queen in this.
This is our entrance into the San Diego hotel. So this
Okay.
we've had many looks before this one, but and I you know, it's funny. I found an amazing piece of research, and then another piece of research, and another piece of research. So I'm sort of like Frankensteining these things together, and then I have this. I call him my secret weapon. His name is Jeff Fender. He's an amazing painter, but he can do any kind of craft. Every Broadway show you go and see, there's a little Jeff Fender probably in the show.
Okay.
And so then I call him and I call him Shug. He calls me Shug too. So, hey Shug, hey Shug.
I'm designing for Shug.
I've decided for Shug. And then we'll talk about all of the possibilities for the paint. So this garment.
So this will be hand painted.
It's all hand painted, yeah.
Oh, wow. And in terms of where we are in the story of Sugar's character, like this to me seems like a very strong look, right? It's bold. Like, tell me how you came up with this.
You know, I feel like, you know, she's a character that, like most of the people in the story, doesn't have any money at the beginning of the story. And so that's one of the little tricks I can play with when I spoke about fleshing out the ensemble first. So they have a look. And you know, in the 30s, when you look at an old Montgomery Ward catalog or an old Sears and Roebuck catalog, you're like, oh my God, this stylish coat and it's $2.99.
Right.
Even though then $2.99 was
It's a different price, but still.
Exactly. So those people are wearing things from that kind of world. So when Sugar comes in, she can't burst through the door like a movie star because that's the journey that the character wants to go on. But I need to make her look like a movie star. So it's the same fumbling around, fiddling around with
That
a lot.
tightrope.
Exactly. And then in the course of, before we get to this garment, she's changed 3 other times. So I'm building.
Well, I know that we do have one other look of hers. We have 2 more looks to see.
Yeah, this is actually.
But this is one of hers.
This is her entrance. So this
At the very top of the show.
At the very top of the show. So they're going to the train. She's late. They're all waiting for Sugar. She does all the things you're not supposed to do. She's got a flask hidden in her garter belt. They're not supposed to drink. She's not supposed to be late.
Definitely.
Right. And then the color of this is heightened, hopefully just enough. You can tell me if I fumbled the ball, but so that
Yes, myself, the expert.
I'm depending on you. So if all of your friends are wearing shades of, you know, sage and camel and grays, and you come in this, you know, you will look like you have figured out a way to dress for the part you want. That's kind of how I think about her. She's understands that old trope about, you know,
yes, dress for the job you want.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, again, the detailing with these gorgeous gloves obviously makes you think of a travel look. We know that when they were traveling, it was gloves, it was purses, it was hats, it was furs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And the final look we have, majestic Sweet Sue.
This is Sweet Sue.
Played by Natasha Yvette Williams, who I can only imagine her in this.
I mean, I didn't really have to do anything. I just had to show up and applaud because she's so incredible.
But yet you have to bring that out in the costume, right? And this is very different from Sugar.
Yeah. She is at the beginning when we meet her. She sings the opening number is called "What Are You Thirsty For?" and it's really her moment. And she appears in kind of like a cocoon coat, sort of in the dark. And you think, oh, she's a chanteuse, or where are we? And then she opens this coat up, and she's carrying all of the booze in Chicago inside her coat lining.
Yeah, so this is not a pattern. This is
right. They're dimensional.
Yep.
And of course, that comes with its own challenges because it's very difficult to make a coat that you can clean that has, you know, a bar on the lining.
Right.
So a lot of development goes into that.
And that the bottles aren't going to clink to give away the joke and yeah, or the reveal,
Exactly.
so to speak. Yeah.
And then they whisk that off her, and then they dance.
And so what makes this color, like we haven't seen a real red yet. What
Yeah.
makes red right for Sweet Sue?
Well, you know, it's funny. There is a red moment, and you have to come see the show if you want to know really where we landed. But it isn't on Sweet Sue, but it is the right, you know, sometimes music and music has an emotional
Absolutely.
content, right? As does color. So when you listen to the music, you just know this is red, this is white, this is blue, or this should be blue, but I'm going to play against it because I don't want to deliver the expectation. So that's another thing that goes into it. So Jeff, my secret weapon out in Brooklyn, is going to
Yes.
paint these things to make them very special.
Stunning.
And you can see that the reds are very, and the orange side, and the kind of a darker red. So
Well, you have shown us such a wealth already, and this is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what you have done and are doing for this show. I just, to wrap up, and my final question is really, what do you hope people feel from seeing the full picture of your costumes once they're in the theater and leave with
Yeah.
the image of Some Like It Hot?
You know, really, my job is really to lift up the actor, and they're the storyteller. And so, literally, if Natasha walked in and said, "I love this, but could it be a skirt?" I would say, "I think it could be a skirt." I like to live on that kind of line. So, really, my job is to help them and be with them, and to make a world where they can, you know, feel all of the feelings. So you want people to come away charmed. They hopefully they'll have cried a little, they'll have laughed a lot, and they'll have learned something about the human condition. So that's kind
Well,
of
like I've said, Casey Nicola told me that he likes to make people laugh so that they can cry.
that's it. That's it.
So you're playing into the joy and the vibrancy of all of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Greg,
My
for
pleasure.
being here with
Thank
us.
you for asking.
You can see Greg Barnes's stunning costumes and the entire gorgeous musical, Some Like It Hot, at the Schubert Theater on Broadway. Tickets are on sale now. And don't forget to watch back all of our design interviews here on Stellar in our little Some Like It Hot speakeasy. You can also find our previous music panel, which was awesome. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you at the theater.